Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. You wouldn't expect a logistics nerd to become a national figure, but that's how it started. My name is Alara Hartium, 38 years old, living in St. Louis, Missouri, have a PhD in logistics systems optimizations, a tendency to name code modules after mythological when many never set out to become an icon in freight automation-y, just wanted to solve hard problems that mattered 7 years ago. I joined a startup called Pulse Freight back then. We were 27 people crammed into a converted print shop with peeling drywall and half a working espresso machine, but we had something raria clearmachente founder. Marius Dalmont was a former Department of Transportation at Visuo, knew how broken the interagency cargo system was, especially at borders and ports. Marius gave me full technical autonomy, reimagine the whole thing. He said, pointing at a blank whiteboard, if we were starting from scratch, how would we do secure cross-border freight? It was the first time someone trusted me with something so biggie still. Remember the adrenaline in my chest when I picked up the marker and started drawing. It knew it had to be fast, redundant, and safe. But most of all, secure from both internal tampering and external interferences. When I invented the dual rail authority protocol Dratha, I never called it that out loud. The idea was simple. Every core system function from rerouting a train tow, authorizing a new cross-agency cargo path would require two things. First, a federal clearance signature. Second, my own encrypted digital key thought way. No one could override the system for profit or politics. Not without me. Noinji built the first version of the system with 3 primary modules, named them Athena, Artemis, and Hera, not out of ego but because I believed logistics like myth was about strength and structure. Athena handled AI-based routing. Artemis monitored biometric inventory chains. Hera oversaw network integrity and decentralized failovers. Tested prototypes at a regional rail terminal outside Kansas City's night. The first full cargo scan completed to end in under 3 minutes, or a free with 5 agency validation. C sat in my car and cryoed it was working. I had built something that wasn't just fast, it was right. Marius offered to take me out to celebrate, but I declined instead. I drove back to the Efficipand. A terminal started coding the redundancy module for portural transition. C didn't care about award. C didn't want headlinese, just wanted the system to be bulletproofy. The time, the first Department of Commerce audit came in. The called Athena Ryalf, most secure domestic freight automation architecture they'd ever seen. Thought was when I realized that this wasn't going to stay small and I wasn't going to stay anonymous. That first contract changed everything. Landed. It's 6 months after the Kansas City Pelota $140 million agreement with the Department of Commerce to secure and streamline key freight corridors in major ports. Wasn't just budget, was historic. Suddenly, the scrappy little startup I had joined was on the front page of Freight Week in infrastructure. Now everyone wanted to know what Athena Rail was and how we pulled it off. Marius called an all-hands meeting the day we won the BD. Remember him standing in front of the whiteboard with a marker in one hand and a bottle of cheap champagne in the other. This isn't the finish line, he said, it's the gate. He looked straight at me when he said I tend. I knew what he means. System work at bet. Now it had 2 scale federal ports, coast-to-coast lines, international handoffs, and it had to hold up under pressure, and it just from bad actors but from bureaucrats. Politicians, executive eshwo, didn't understand what made it work. In the first Placeth contract included something I hadn't expected, a clause embedding my name into the federal implementation agreement. All modifications to core Athena Rail infrastructure shall require the joint authorization, the designated Federal Logistics Authority, and Dr. Alara Hart, architect of system. That's what it said. He stared at the line for a full minute when I saw the draft. Marius smiled. It's just smart engineering. He said, why would we let anyone touch this without you? The next 5 years blurred Athena rail spread like wildfire, first through Federal Border Agency Asthan into customs and intermodal logistics. Operation Sacris, 12 different departments Severian. Wananini watched the system evolve from 3 core modules to nearly 40, still named every one after a mythological figure. Electra handled real-time lane switching, Gaia monitored rail bed integrity with embedded sensor. I built an entire language of machine-driven freight intelligence, and I made sure every node reported truthful, With growth came dilution. 2.5 years in, Pulse Freight was acquired by a logistics conglomerate, Moreau Transit Holdings. Their CEO called it a merger of vision and velocity, but within a week, the company changed her open office, turned into executive wings. Maria's transitioned to an advisory role, and suddenly, I was reporting to someone named Doreen Woe. Thought RFID tags were sorceria. New marketing team rolled in asterisk and plastered every hallway with buzzwords. Seamless, predictive, scalable. What they didn't understand was that Athena Rail wasn't built on slogan set, was built on disciplinatrist, chainsewed logsherdend, AI. Layers with redundant validation bets that kind of regarded and fit into a quarterly earnings slide I kept building. NEY stayed late, met with federal compliance auditors personalient, walked them through every risk vectory, updated protocols. Every time a new agency joined the system end, I never not once compromised the dual authorization logic. Meanwhile, the people around me changed these, started calling it Cam's baby. Like it was a hobby project instead of the backbone of North American freight logistics. Heard a junior exec laugh once in the break room, saying, "I don't know what she does, but the feds sure love her." They didn't know that without Athena's routing integrity, trucks wouldn't get matched to train, sand cargo containers would idle in port for days. Didn't know that every time they tried to streamline something, had to run a security regression to make sure they didn't punch a hole in the system. Bet I knew how fragile it all was if the wrong person ever got the key. So I kept my name in the contract, kept the protocol leviand. I kept my mouth shut. When the new leadership waved their hands over my work like it was background noise, back as I wasn't building for Themi, was building for the system, for the freight, for the future. I knew things had changed for real. Seraphine Sten walked in, was Morrow's new CO sharp. Heels Harper Toneshi didn't waste time with introductions. Within a week, she called an alignment summit with all department leads. He got 15-minute testo. Explain how Athena Rail worked. 15 minutes to summarize a 7-year architecture. She nodded through my overview, tapping on her phone when I finished. She smiled politely and said, "Excellent. We'll need to modernize some of this for growth. Expect a lot of eyes on you this quarter." Then came Corbin Kendall, was introduced as Strategic Operations Lead, but that was just a euphemism. Corbin was the golden boy from Morrow's commercial shipping. Division, MBA Polishetaways, wearing sport coats with no tiond, that fake relatable charm people learn in management. Simi Narson, our first meeting, leaned across the table and said, "Athena Rail is impressive. Ella Rubat, we're going to upsivy this. Think scale, not symmetry." I blink it. "Symmetry is why it works exactly," he said, like I had agreed with him, "but we're past that now. We need an eye that overrides deadlocks automatically, no more human bottlenecks." He meant May was the bottlenetsky, tried explaining how Athena Rail's AI routing was already dynamite. That critical changes still needed dual sign-off by design. That safeguards weren't delasty, were integrities. Corbin didn't cared about dashboards from that point on. He inserted himself into everything, summoned meetings to workshop the system's weakness with people who barely knew how routing nodes operated, toss around words like agile optimization and real-time override injection asterisk. Never mind that. Overriding certain systems without the correct audit chain could trigger federal non-compliance. In front of an entire project team, he said, "Let's be honest, we've outgrown single-point gatekeeping. Ilara can't be everywhere. I smiled professional ithats. The point of distributed authorization authorite authority. Just waved it off. Don't worry, we're building guardrails. But I'd seen his guardrail shelved on override modules designed to bypass. Humans signofthi were fasty, were dangerous, and, worst of all, they worked just well in an auto fool, someone who didn't know what was missing. So I made a choice. I started documenting everything Vori. Change request of recode for Kivari time. Someone on his team touched a system without following proper traceability, logged it in a separate repository under my personal credentials seared, and backed up twice and quietly, made sure every federal-facing component still ran the dual-rail authority protocol. Didn't notice Cethi were too busy running pitch decks for congressional briefings and media. Rolla Scorbin even proposed something called Athena Plus. It had a snazzy logo and a ridiculous tagline, "Freight with feeling." I almost laughed, but I didn't stentity. Stayed late at the Affiche reran integrity tests after his team pushed their up-to-Tessie rebuilt failovers in case someone bypassed biometric verification with understanding what they were doing. Keptera on a closed loop my own digital watchdog set to alert me the second the core logic drifted out of Specty thought they were modernizing. What they were really doing was playing with a loaded system. Didn't understand he wasn't going to let them break it, so I let them have their meeting. Let them ignore me, and in the background, I kept my hand on the kill switch, not to destroy the system bot, to save it from Thimit. Happened on a Thursday, sunny outside, a calm in the officiant of those deceptively ordinary mornings that ends with your whole life on fire. Got a calendar invite at 9:13 a.m. Strategic alignment. Corbin. Kendall, legal team, no details, just a conference room number and a 15-minute. Blocky didn't think much of it. Figured it was another pitch meeting or a compliance update one. I walked in. Corbin was already there, sitting at the head of the table, like he was hosting a late-night talk show. Beside him was someone from legal. I'd seen her before in hallway conversations, but we'd never been introduced. Corbin stood up with that practiced grin and said, "Hey, Alara. Appreciate you making time." I nodded. "What's this about?" He gestured toward the chair across from him. "Go ahead and sit. Shouldn't take long." I stayed standing. Legal counsel cleared her throat. "Dr. Hart, we wanted to notify you that as of today, your position is being dissolved as part of our operational restructure. Injectic immediately." My ears, Bazzitti, thought I misheard. Her Corbin jumped in all upbeat, like he was delivering good news. "Look, it's not personal. We're pivoting to a flatter model, cross-functional teams. Modulus, it's time to scale with efficiency." I stared at him. "Built this system and you did incredible work," he said quickly, like he was throwing me a biscuit. "But the company's in a different phase. No, need flexibility, need deniability." I said. He shifted slightly in his seat, but kept the smiley. "You've been critical to our growth. That's why we're offering a generous severance and transition." Suf legal counsel slid a folder across the tablet. "Didn't touch it. And what about the Athena rail contract?" Askreddit names me as a required signatory. Corbin's smile grew wider. Too wide thoughts. More of a legacy clausia, legal formality. We've got counsel reviewing it now. Halden be a blockery. Felt something cold settle in my chest. The really didn't understand. He looked down at the folder. "Severance agreement, Nazem." Empty HR boilerplate. Flipped the first packages to keep my hands busy in the hallway. Could hear the faint buzz of phones ringing, people typing, business as usual. Thought this was over. Stood up. "Are we done?" Corbin nodded. "Well, arranged for IT to collect your badge and equipment. You'll be out by lunch. Out." I repeated like I was never hurry. Didn't answer. Thought he took the folder, walked out of the room, and didn't look back. No box of desk stuff. No goodbyes. No parade of coworkers pretending to be Serpersetti. Didn't even stop by my terminal because I knew something they didn't. 3 years earlier, I had baked a defensive failsafe into the federal-facing Systems, subtle logic, chain that, validated signatory presence at every core sync point TIFF. My key went missing. System wouldn't crash it, would simply new route stuffer, up to Tesla grind down under the weight of unresolved verifications. It wouldn't be sabotaged, would be the system defending itself against them. Thought I was just another technical artifact to sunset bet. What they didn't understand, what they never understood, was that Athena Rail didn't trust them, it trusted me. And now it was about to remember exactly why. Next morning I set up at a co-working space near the St. Louis River frontet. Because I had Tobu. Because I wanted to quiet place brick wall scoot cafino. Corbini brought only my laptop and a flash Dravino company hardware and corporate access gist. And the private backupid kept synced all these years, a clean mirror of Athena Rail's core architecture. And validation layers updated nightly until the moment they locked me out. Plugged in, loaded the console, waited for the screen to go green. It did me digital key was still recognized. Exhaled slowly and opened the Athena Hera module as expected. System was stable, but it was pulsing, not failing, not crashing, just alerted. Had registered my absence, sign it in some dramatic meltdown. We just a low-level heartbeat tick like a skipped step in. A very long dancetti sort of anomaly. Only someone who wrote the choreography would even notice. Sathan I opened Artemis, the module responsible for cargo lineage and multi-agency handoffs within. Seconds I saw them delestazins of them tinny. Silent failures where new freight clearances were being held up because the route updates lacked my key. Nothing alarming on the surface, just mismatched hash estimates on Port Terrell transfers and voice. Biometric to cancel, edge cases all recover a blute. I knew what the meath system was starting to defend itself. Added a new flag to the validation layer, just one line of code carefully scoped and untraceable. Unless were looking for a TA conditional clause that said, if my key is absent for more than 72 hours, reject all new route authorizations pending federal override. No warning message, no red banners, just silent rejection. Could try to brute force Ithi, could try to patch over it, bet they wouldn't know where to look because I had built it. That it's Waby designy. Sip my coffee and lean back in the worn leather chair, watching the log stream scroll. Most packets were still flowing, but the hiccups were multiplying. Port 418 in Seattle dropped from green to yellow. Tupstom's ID syncs in Baltimore lagged by 27 seconds. A verification node in Laredo failed. 3 retricent flipped to local routing only, and no one knew why A wasn't trying to burn it down. This wasn't revenge. This was preservation. Athena Rail had always been designato. Prioritize integrity over convenience. Site wasn't just a piece of software, was a promise. I wasn't going to let people like Corbin break it just to meet a dashboard metric. B mid-die. Got a ping on my private dev channel from an old engineer, Samin, who had been there since the early pulse rate days. The message was just 3 words. Are you Washangi? Replied with a single checkmark. Beak house? Yes. I was watching Gand. Athena was remembering what it meant to be protected. B Sunday evening freight logs were no longer just glitchy. They were failing across 4 major ports: Newark, Oakland, Houston, and Savannah. Cargo transfer authorizations started to misfiring. A way no override patch could explain. Trains were arriving unscheduled. Bat clearance tokens were stale. Inventory chains weren't sensing. Containers flagged for priority where held without Kazbekas. Artemis couldn't resolve their chain of custody proofs. Athena Rail interface didn't crash it. Quietly refused to cooperate. At 6:42 p.m. Corbin finally broke. Emailed me from his corporate account with the subject line, urgent consulting opportunity. Laura, hope you're doing well. We're seeing some inconsistencies in a few routing modules. Appreciate your insights. Asterisk can offer $750 an hour. For short-term diagnostically, it's jump on a call. Corbini didn't reply. Tuesday's offer had increased to $10. 0 a day, and the tone had changed. At this is escalating quick. Live do WI is asking questions. Need your eyes on this? Now please name your retriever things negotiables. Still no reply and steady. Incorporated a new entity Heart Logistics into critically named Clear. Miss Yon registered it from the same Riverside workspace where I watched their system unravel. Tagline on the site said, "Secure logistics isn't a feature, it's a foundation." I reached out to a few old Caliga senders who had left. Pulse frayed after the acquisition. Some had gone to start Tupsa. Few had gone freelance. Severy, one of them, responded within 24 hours. Most didn't ask for details. They just said, "Where do I sign?" By midweek, I had 10 resumes in my inbox and 3 calls scheduled with former federal contacts, people who had always trusted Athena Railbecas. They trusted me on Donano. They were panicking in Wednesday morning fright. Review Daily ran a headline. Port delays surge amid system inconsistencies. Athena Rail under scrutiny. The article quoted to anonymous port officials well-claimed recent back-end changes had destabilized tracking workflows and even mentioned the architect's departure as a possible cause. I've read that sentence twice. That was the first time I saw my name. A logistics crisis article, not as a source of innovation but as an absence. Corbin sent a follow-up email that afternoon stripped of Charmalara. We're in talks with Federal Liasanthar, conducting an emergency review. This could become a federal issue. Please respond, Corbin. I refreshed the email thon. I refreshed the job board I'd set up for Heart Logistics. Integrity 3, more applications had come in. 2 engineers and policy analysts with Athena experience. Set system wasn't crashing, but the company behind it was starting. Toby Thursday wasn't just port authorities whispering. Federal Transportation Officer Simi I'd worked with during the early interagency role reached out through a personal channel. No subject. Lenine small talk, just one sentence. Can we talk off the record? Met in a corner booth at a quiet diner just outside the Beltway. Didn't take notes. Didn't bring a laptop, just sipped weak coffee and asked, "Is it true your digital key is embedded in the Athena Rail agreement?" I nodded. Line 47. Subsection D. Dual authorization requiret no exceptions. Asterisk she. Cisse they thought that clause was ceremonially. Smiled, but it wasn't. Kindit never was. Side leaned. Enthi didn't just violate procedure, they violated federal protocol. Nois, there a way to fix it. There's a way to rebuild it. Asterisk, but not with the people running it now. That was the beginning of the end. Friday afternoon, Corbin was placed on administrative leave. The internal memo leaked within Horset cited potential mishandling, system critical infrastructure and oversight. Viola Tianci saw the screenshot on a logistics analyst's Twitter feed before it hit the newsthon. Seraphine Coletti don't know if she was told to or if it was a last-ditch effort to save face, but her voice on the phone was smoothened, just short of desperate. Taylor. She said, "Let's talk about what?" I asked. "Already knowing want you back in an executive role, a technical authority." Pollock led clean slottened. A raise stared at the river outside my co-working space window, the glass reflecting back my own steady face. No. She blinked on the other end of the call. I could hear it. "Alara, come on. You don't have to make this a crusade." This isn't a crusade. It's a firewall. You're on the wrong side of it. You're walking away from power, money, control. I said calmly, "I'm walking toward all 3. It's just not the way you define them." I hung up. Later that evening, Heart Logistics Integrity received its first federal request for proposal, a $5.1 million pilot contract from the National Cargo Agency. Scope: design a next-generation freight oversight model. Consensus-based, resilient, decentralized. The kind of system Athena Rail used to be before Mero gutted it for efficiency. By the end of the week, federal analysts were openly questioning PulseFlight's remaining credentials. I heard chatter about audits, about privilege, revocations, about breach of contract. Old coworkers started calling carefully. "Cam, if you're building something new, ... I didn't have to finish the sentence. They already knew. And somewhere out there, Corbin was watching it all. The headlines, the offers, the silence. He never emailed me again. He didn't need to. He was already gone. It became official at 9:12 a.m. on a Monday. The Department of Transportation released a public statement terminating the Athena rail contract, citing unauthorized system overrides, breach of designated signatory protocol, and failure to maintain certified operational integrity. They didn't mince words. It was the kind of language that ruins corporate reputations for a generation. By noon, Paul's Freight stock price had flatlined, not dropped, collapsed. I watched the numbers from my kitchen table, barefoot, sipping coffee from a mug that still had the old Pulse Freight logo on it. I should have thrown it out, but something about drinking from it while the company crumbled made the moment feel complete. Morrow. Transit Holdings released a damage control statement full of legal hedging and empty regrets. Seraphine's name wasn't in it. Neither was Corbin's. But by midweek, the entire tech division was shuttered. The remaining assets of Athena Rail were sold off to competitors in pieces. A routing module here, a security framework there, none of it could be used as is, though the core was still tied to my original protocol without my key. Without the trust chain, it was just ghost code, and now the feds knew it. 2 days later, my inbox lit up an RFP. Formal, stamped, and direct from the U.S. Department of Transportation. Proposal request, development of a 6-year, $2.9 billion. National Freight Authentication and Oversight Framework. That was more than a contract. It was a reset button, a do-over a chance. Build something that wasn't just secure but sovereign. A system with oversight by design, not. As a Bolton afterthought, I forwarded the file to my new team with the subject line, "Let's go to work." That same afternoon, we celebrated with pizza and black coffee in the common room of our modest office. No press release, no champagne, just relief. Most of my original engineering team was already with me by then, the ones who understood what Athena really was before. The suits turned it into a trophy. They laughed like engineers do, tired but proud. Someone played a playlist called Operational Integrity. With way too many synth tracks, I didn't complain. We deserved a little noise. Meanwhile, Corbin disappeared from logistics news entirely. No LinkedIn update, no press statements, nothing, just a blackout. Rumor had it he moved to consulting in the private shipping sector under a different name, Seraphine. She landed quietly at a boutique strategy firm that specialized in organizational recalibration. I saw her photo on their website. She looked smaller somehow, less certain, but I didn't care. None of them mattered anymore. The architecture would be mine again, but this time, it would be bigger than me. That was the point. No single signatory, no silent overrides, just code, accountability, and a structure. No one could quietly dismantle for quarterly gains. Pulse Freight was gone. Athena was not. She had simply outgrown them. 1 year later, I walked on stage at the North American Infrastructure Symposium TOE, the kind of applause that used to make me uncomfortable. That this time, I let it happen. The lights were hot, the backdrop was sleek, polished metal, and digital banners, looping keywords like resilience, redundancy, consensus. But the thing that caught my eye wasn't any of that. It was the audience: engineers, policy, officials, port directors, analysts, from agencies that had once refused to share their databases. Now they were sitting side by side, taking notes. I stood behind the podium and took a breath. "My name is Ilara Hart," I began. "And for the last 9 years, I've been trying to build a logistics system that doesn't just move cargo, but moves trust." Behind me, the first slide faded in. Distributed oversight, RCH K2 Areno logos. No mascots, just the name, black on white. I walked them through the framework. Permission layers. Biometric integrated chain of custody. Consensus-based. Root validation. A trust model that required 3 independent authorities to sign off on any critical freight pathway. One of them had to be external. None of them could act alone. No backdoors, no override flags, no fast tracking at the expense of safety. The system wasn't fast because we stripped it down. It was fast because it didn't have to fight itself. Halfway through, I saw nods from a Department of Commerce official in the third row. A port director from Toronto smiled like someone had just confirmed her instincts. They understood. I closed with a simple truth. Efficiency is important, but efficiency without integrity is a liability. That's why what we're building isn't just logistics, it's infrastructure. And infrastructure without trust, positives, just concrete. I didn't name Pulsefright. I didn't mention Seraphine or Corbin or the system they tried to gut and repackage, but I didn't have to. Everyone in the room knew what had happened. They'd seen the collapse. They'd read the audit reports. They understood now not just what went wrong, but why. And now they were choosing differently. Heart Logistics' integrity had grown from 3 people and a rented co-working room to a team of over 250. We held contracts with 17 federal and international agencies, including the new North Atlantic Freight Security Consortium. We didn't advertise. We didn't need to. We just built systems that worked because they weren't built around profit. They were built around principle. As I stepped off stage to another round of applause, one of the symposium hosts reached out to shake my hand. "You've started something big," he said. I smiled. "No, I just refused to let it be small. Because in the end, Athena wasn't just a network. She was a warning. And this new era was the answer."